A groin kick and a slap to the face all at once. It's been a brutal day for Texas in the portal. We'll talk about it and try to find some good news coming up on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you, everydayers, for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're, of course, free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving a comment. So thank y'all sincerely for that. How about a double dose of bad news for Texas in the transfer portal? It started a little after 12 o'clock Central Time when Florida running back Jadan Baugh announced that he is staying in Gainesville. He was the Horns' top target at running back this offseason. Second team All-SEC, ran for more than 1,000 yards in 2025. A guy that Longhorn fans got to see up close and personal when Texas played at Florida this year. There was a lot of optimism after Texas hired former Florida running backs coach Jabbar Jalouk that Jadan Baugh was going to follow Jalouk to the ATX. And unfortunately, Jadan Baugh never even entered the portal. Florida offered a great NIL deal. Their new head coach, John Summerall, and their new running backs coach continued to maintain contact with Baugh throughout this offseason, and they were able to convince Jadan Baugh to stick around the swamp. So Jadan Baugh is staying. The Horns' top choice at running back is off the market. Isaac Brown, who was the Longhorns' number 2 choice at running back, the Louisville tailback, is also off the market. We talked about this the other day. Isaac Brown, who it was originally reported was going to enter the portal, decided to stick around at Louisville. So Texas is on to plan C at running back right now. Look, NIL is a real thing, and neither of those guys ended up entering the portal, so Texas couldn't get them on campus for a visit. People don't like moving. I hate moving. We all hate moving. These guys have lives at their current schools. They've got nice apartments and fancy cars and a lot of extra cash. They're comfortable, and they were taken care of by their current places, such as life in college football in 2026. Jadan Baugh was my top target out of anybody who I wanted Texas to go after this year, regardless of position. The Longhorns need to get their running game turned around. And again, they're having to pivot to plan C to find a difference maker at running back. So that was the first bit of bad news that we got. And then a few minutes after the Jadan Baugh announcement, former Texas wide receiver Parker Livingstone, who is now Parker Deadston, to me at least, and Texas fans everywhere, announced that he is transferring to Oklahoma. Yeah, Parker Livingstone, the guy who wanted everyone to feel bad for him when he announced that he was transferring, saying that things were out of his control, basically insinuating that Texas had kicked him out. Yeah, well, we found out shortly after he released that statement that he was lying. And Texas actually offered him a pretty nice NIL deal to stick around for 2026. And instead, he decided to bolt. So Longhorn fans weren't too happy after that. And then now this about salt in the wound. I mean, a giant bag of salt poured onto the wound of Texas football right now, transferring to the biggest rival. Just brutal if you are a Texas fan. I mean, Parker Livingstone was a fan favorite here, so it was already sad when he announced that he was leaving, and then for him to go to Oklahoma, my goodness. That atmosphere at the Cotton Bowl on the second Saturday of October is always a little something. It's going to be even more this year. Maybe Oklahoma just paid Parker Livingstone for intel on how to beat Texas, or at least for some intel on how to score a touchdown against the Longhorns, because, they haven't done that in 2 years or in 3 of the last 4 Red River shootouts, to be honest. I was told right after Parker Livingstone hit the portal that Oklahoma was a team that we needed to pay attention to. And Parker Livingstone actually apparently wanted to go to Oklahoma when he was in high school, The Sooners offered, but Livingston broke his foot in the second game of his senior year. And I don't know if Oklahoma pulled the offer, but it sounds like they didn't recruit him as hard as they did before. And Jeff Lebby, who was the Sooners offensive coordinator, was kind of flirting with Mississippi State at the time and ended up taking the head coaching job there. So I don't know. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe Parker Livingstone never really wanted to be at Texas. But ultimately, all of that stuff about him getting kicked out and, this was out of my control and it's the ever-changing landscape of college football, it was all fake. It was all phony. He just wanted more money. Now, Texas offered him a nice six-figure NIL package, but I think Oklahoma offered a little bit more, and that is why he decided to leave and is headed north of the Red River. So, good riddance, Parker Livingstone. Boy, talk about going from a fan favorite to maybe the most hated man in the entire fan base in the span of just 1 week. I mean, that's what happened. Parker Livingstone was playing for Texas in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl less than a week ago. And then a day after that game, we find out he's hitting the portal. And then again, today on January 6th, we find out that he is going to the biggest rival. My goodness. So, a double dose of bad news. Again, a kick to the groin and a slap in the face, basically within the span of 10 minutes for Longhorn Nation. So what's next? Where do the Horns go from here? Is there anything positive to talk about? As it feels like the sky is falling here in Austin, Texas, USA, America. At running back, Raleek Brown is clearly the front runner right now, at least the guy that Texas is going after the hardest in the transfer portal. Raleek Brown is actually in the portal. You don't have to worry about whether or not he is going to enter. Raleek Brown had 1,100 yards at Arizona State here in 2025, 34 catches as well. A guy who started his college career at USC, spent 2 years in Los Angeles, then spent the last 2 years at ASU. I won't sit here and lie to you. I don't think he's as good of a running back as Jadan Baugh, but I do think he's better than anything that the Longhorns had at that position in 2025. Texas is doing an in-home visit with Brown today, and Raleek Brown is supposed to be making his way to the Texas campus tomorrow. So 2 visits and 2 days, as long as things go according to plan. The Longhorns aren't the only team interested here, but I feel good about Texas's chances on this one. And I did see a couple of crystal ball projections last night that believe Raleek Brown will ultimately become a Longhorn. I don't know how many of you believe any positive reporting surrounding Texas with what's been going on as of late. But that seems to be Texas's choice right now at running back. And then, of course, at wide receiver, Cam Coleman is still out there. This feels like a 3-horse race for the top-ranked player in the portal. I think it's Texas. I think it's Texas A&M. And I think it's Texas Tech. The Longhorns and Aggies have already received visits from Coleman. I think Coleman is in Lubbock today taking a visit. You're always worried whenever Texas Tech is involved with the amount of money they've been throwing around in the portal. They already spent $5 million on Brendan Sorsby to take over at quarterback there. Cody Campbell and the Texters aren't messing around these days. So we will see. I mean, all 3 of those schools have a lot of money, and we'll see what Cam Coleman decides to do. But he has been the Longhorns' top priority from day one. We'll see if Texas can get him. If they can, that would obviously offset a lot of the bad news that we've been getting over these last few days. I mean, Cam Coleman and Raleek Brown would be a very nice 1-2 punch when it comes to wide receiver and running back. But obviously, neither of those guys have committed or signed just yet. So a long way to go before we get the positive news that we're looking for. And I will say this, I say this in terms of high school recruiting every year, and I think it's worth mentioning again now that we're talking about portal recruiting. There are waves. This is a roller coaster ride. It's not always positive news here. There are bumps and bruises along this journey. The transfer portal is still open for 10 more days. There are other options in there right now that I think will bolster the Longhorns roster for 2026. And guys who aren't in the portal right now can eventually enter before we get to January 15th and the portal comes to a close. So I think Texas has a plan. I think they've at least been preparing for the possibility of not getting their top guys. I expect Steve Sarkisian and company to find a way to turn this into a positive portal window. But man, we could really use some good news soon, because backup tight ends and special teamers aren't moving the needle. It's not enough to get people happy right now. We need to see some all that Texas fans across Longhorn Nation have talked about all offseason long is how this team is all in on trying to win a championship in 2026. Yes, Texas has 6 portal commitments so far, but 3 of them are special teamers. One of them's a defensive tackle. One of them's a backup tight end. And I think that's only 5. So I'm rounding up. They're not even at 6. We could use the 6th one here in the not too distant future. But man, again, just a slap in the face and a kick to the groin within the span of like 10 minutes today. Parker Livingstone going to Oklahoma, Jadan Baugh staying at Florida. The hits keep coming for Texas. And again, I'd love to be talking about something positive here on this channel in the not too distant future. What say you? Would love to get your comments below. What's your panic level right now with Texas? Are you worried about the way the portal has gone? Are you still optimistic about Cam Coleman and Raleek Brown and the Longhorns' ability to put together a championship level roster this coming season? Would love to hear from y'all. But just a couple of quick hitter thoughts from the double dose of ugly news today. All right. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Can't thank y'all enough for your continued support of what we're building here on Locked On Longhorns. More portal news, hopefully some positive news coming up. So make sure you subscribe and turn those notifications on so you always know when we drop new content. But that'll do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.